So 7:30, should we give it a minute?
Yeah, I think we have a quorum. We're missing committee member Cooper.
No, Tom's here. Max is missing.
Sorry, committee member Way. Sorry. It's a green building subcommittee. We're missing.
Okay. So do you want to go ahead and do the call to order and roll call?
Okay. Please remember to unmute yourself and say present or here when I call on your name. Committee member Breeding.
Here.
Wonderful, with a guest. Committee member Choi.
Here.
Committee member Cooper.
Here.
Committee member Peterson.
Here.
Perfect. Looks like we're still waiting on committee member Way and Chair Larson.
Here.
Okay.
Right. So do we have any, so we'll do the approval of the minutes. Hopefully everybody got a chance to take a look at the minutes from July. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, looks like no. So we have a approval of the minutes motion.
Motion to approve the July minutes.
We have a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
I'm sorry.
Right.
Committee member Breeding. Yes. Committee member Choi.
Yes.
Committee member Cooper.
Yes.
Committee member Peterson.
Yes.
Committee member Way, I think we're still waiting on. And Chair Larson.
Yes.
Approved.
All right, thank you. Are there any, so we have time for public comment for anybody that wants to talk about anything that's not on the agenda. Is there anybody from the public dialed in? Looks like we do not, right?
Oh, we do.
We have one public
Oh.
comment.
Oh, I guess I can't see him. Okay. Is that a request for public comment, or just that there's somebody from public on the meeting?
Yes. Should I press allow to talk?
Hi, thank you. Good evening. So, coming at you live, my name is Jeremiah Garrett Pinguello, coming at you live from the Port of Oakland. I'm at work right now doing refrigerated containers, and these are all on shore power, which is on electricity. I mentioned last time this meeting about these vessels, these ships coming in. You know, they burn raw bunker fuel. I keep taking pictures of the exhaust coming out of the stacks of these ships, and it's all black. It's really ridiculous. I don't know what kind of contacts you have. I know I have met multiple people from air quality control, air quality management, California. I've met a bunch of people from the state. I think I still have their business cards. But it'd be good from the city of Albany to be pushing for the Port of Oakland to be emission free. All of the vehicles we use out here inside the terminal, since it's private property, they go unsmogged. So these vehicles are terrible condition. I mean, these are some serious gross polluters. And something has to change about this. And everybody in Oakland, Berkeley, it's everybody downwind is breathing all this stuff. So I don't know what we can do from Albany to push for the Port of Oakland to be emission free and these ships to burn cleaner fuel. It's great. These semi trucks eventually will be electric. Tesla and companies have these electric semi trucks. That's a big emission problem on these highways. And it's kind of odd because you don't really get to see what I see. The majority of traffic, you see your cars on the freeway. Just to let you know, there's a big industry with these semi trucks, and they all start their engines at the same time in the morning. So you got thousands of trucks starting up their engines at the same time in the morning, which really pollutes the air. So yeah, and all this smoke quality right now with the fires going on is bad for people with asthma and upper respiratory things. So I don't know what this sustainability you guys could do. Maybe get a grant for some masks to offer to low income people, maybe give out free masks. I don't know what to do, but yeah, keep up the good work, everybody. And if you can, just work on air quality control at the Port of Oakland and these big rig trucks. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Appreciate you joining our meeting and appreciate the comments. Take those into consideration. All right. Any other public comments? Okay. Nope. All right. We can go on to announcements.
Okay. I have a presentation which I will share. Okay. All right. So to start, we have, these will be the announcements I will cover, the first of which is our sustainability events and resources. This month, or this year, in order to promote safety during Coastal Cleanup Day, we are doing Coastal Cleanup Month. We're encouraging Albany residents to go out with members of their household and pick up trash in the street or in parks or at the creeks, and live by the motto, a clean shore starts at your front door, and hoping to educate everyone on litter reduction and making sure that litter isn't flowing into our waterways during the rainy season. Next, or also a piece of that, we're working with the Watershed Project also to promoted The Story of Plastics, which is a video about plastic pollution and how it impacts different parts of the world. And then everyone who attended the virtual screening, which was free to everyone in Albany, were also welcome to join a discussion led by the Watershed Project on the 13th. I don't yet know how many folks attended, but I'm excited to hear how that went. And finally, Drive Clean Bay Area 2020. If you remember, last year was the first year of Drive Clean Bay Area, which is a new group purchasing collaborative for electric vehicles sponsored by different agencies and nonprofits in the Bay Area. They're procuring deals on a number of different electric vehicles, and Bay Area residents can get significant rebates on electric vehicles from participating in this group collaborative, which interested participants must sign up by December 5th. Drive Clean Bay Area is also going to be promoting opportunities and resources about being an EV driver or an electric bike user during National Drive Electric Week, which starts on September 26th. More information about that will be in our city e-news this Friday. Next, I thought I'd give a quick update about what we've been working on in the sustainability division since we last met in July. We're going back to, we're continuing our work on our green building updates, as well as our electric vehicle action plan, which you'll hear updates about this evening from both the subcommittees and from Michelle. We had an intern over the summer who helped us with an electrification website. That'll be a one-stop shop for Albany residents who are interested in electrifying their home. We're kind of envisioning this as a hub where residents who are interested can go and say, what do I have to do to get started at the most basic level? And then all the way up to, how do I find rebates for my heat pump water heater, or what kind of opportunities are there to find contractors to help me install a heat pump water heater? So we're very excited about this website. Michelle and I are working out some of the kinks and changing up a little bit of the wording, but we're hoping to launch that soon to the CAC, and then also potentially ask members of the community to tell us what they think, so we can, we envision it as a living website, so we'll continue to make edits to it. And finally, we're continuing our outreach and virtual programming. We include outreach on a number of different sustainability topics in the e-news, so hopefully you're subscribed to that. If not, you're missing out. Go sign up. And also this fall, we'll be kicking off a couple virtual programming opportunities with the Albany Senior Center. I think the first one, which will be on October 22nd, will be a composting 101 workshop, similar to our recycling 101 workshop, but just specifically on composting and probably a little bit shorter. Next, for a quick update on East Bay Community Energy, we will be diving into this topic during our special meeting on the 30th at 5:30 p.m. But as I mentioned last time, the EBCE board back in June approved a new budget for the next fiscal year, in which the Bright Choice discount reduced from 1.5% discount to PG&E to a 1% discount to PG&E, and that became effective July 1st. The price and power content of Brilliant 100 was discussed by the EBCE board tonight. Unfortunate timing. None of us, well, it happened on the same night as our meeting, which made it complicated to listen in. But we will be discussing that on the 30th, and I will be sending more information about what the board discussed tonight in a memo next week. And then finally, they're maintaining the rate of Renewable 100 at a penny per kilowatt hour more than PG&E. And again, just to really, just to really make sure everyone remembers, we have our special CAC meeting to talk about the power mix options and recommend a potential power mix option to council. That will be on September 30th at 5:30 p.m. So mark your calendars. It's not our typical third Wednesday meeting, but it'll be a big meeting, and be on the lookout for a memo about that soon. Any questions?
Can I give an announcement too? Is now a good time? Okay. So I have some news that I think is sad. I want to let you know my husband's company has transferred him to Portland, Oregon. And I actually just found out today that the city won't be able to, I'm not going to be able to work remotely from Oregon for the city of Albany. I was hoping that I'd be able to do that and continue my role with all of you. So I'm likely to be leaving the city soon. I don't know when that will be. And I don't know if this is my last meeting or not, but in case it is, I wanted to let you all know that I've really appreciated working with all of you I've been with the city in some capacity for 10 years. And it's been just really amazing working with all of you, some new faces, some old faces on the committee. But I can also assure you that you're in amazing hands with Lizzie and Michelle. So, yeah.
Well, it's been great working with you, Claire. Good. I'm glad Portland's a great place. Enjoy it. We'll definitely miss you. It's been great working with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Big loss to the city. Huge. You've been fantastic, helping all along the way these last many years, Claire. I just can't thank you enough for all the work you've done to support sustainability in Albany and elsewhere. And it's just been wonderful working with you. And I'm really sad that we're losing you and Portland is going to gain you in some way or another.
Thanks, Tom. And I know, I mean, you were there from the beginning, so it's been wonderful to work with you.
And I'm actually glad that you've had so much overlap with Lizzie. That's been an extraordinary opportunity for you to transfer knowledge and insights and process and everything. So I really appreciate that that was able to happen. And also just have very much appreciated your guidance and support to what we're trying to do. I know sometimes we've butted heads on things, but we've always worked things through, and you've given us some really good insights into how the city functions and how to approach the council that have been very helpful.
Thanks.
The other thing I
Thank
say
you.
is that hopefully there's a proclamation coming out for
Yes.
Blair.
Yeah, we'll get you dialed in for a proclamation.
That'd be lovely.
The whereas will go on forever.
Especially if I'm writing it, that's going to be wordy problem.
Yeah, we were just talking about how wordy we are.
No, there's a lot to put in it.
Yeah, well, thanks for letting us know. It was good to be able to see you off.
Hopefully we'll be bringing her back for many presentations. So
All right. So we continue.
I don't see any public comment for the announcement section.
Okay, thanks. And we have no presentations, right, Lizzie?
right.
Okay. All right. So we'll go on to the discussion items. And,
Yes.
when,
We do have Allison Martin here taking a break from her probably very busy evening studying as a Harvey Mudd student. But if it's okay with the entire committee, we'd like to move her proclamation up to the top of the discussion because she's not able to stay for the whole meeting. And unfortunately, where it's placed right now will probably be a little bit. So if that's okay with the whole committee, we'd like to move that up to 6-1.
it's okay with me.
Right.
All right, looks good.
Awesome. Let me pull it up. And share my screen. Okay. All right. Our proclamation of appreciation to Allison Martin for her service on the Climate Action Committee. Whereas Allison Martin was appointed by the Board of Education and began her service on the committee in February 2019, and whereas Allison served as vice chair beginning in October 2019, and whereas as an active Albany High School student, Allison offered invaluable youth perspective and insight to the committee on climate action in Albany, and whereas as an advocate of active transportation, Allison frequently provided her expertise on carbon-free transportation opportunities. And whereas, as an avid mountain biker, Allison biked to all Climate Action Committee meetings, proving her commitment to climate action. And whereas, Allison was an influential and dedicated member of the EV Action Plan Subcommittee and helped develop long-term electric vehicle adoption goals for Albany. And whereas, during her term of service, Allison was instrumental in the development of the 2019 Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And whereas Allison is recognized by the committee for her youth leadership and for her commitment to making Albany a more environmentally responsible city. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Climate Action Committee does express its appreciation to Allison Martin for her service to the city of Albany and wishes her the best in her future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
So if we have a motion to
Yeah.
adopt the
Oh.
proclamation of appreciation for Allison Martin.
I make a motion to adopt the proclamation.
I second that.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Quality roll call vote. Committee member Breeding. Committee member Choi.
Yes.
Committee member Cooper.
Aye.
Committee member Peterson.
Aye.
Chair Larson.
Yes. Aye.
Passed. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, thank you. Great job. It's been fun working with you.
Thank you. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be on the Climate Action Committee, and it was a wonderful experience, and I am very looking forward to seeing what you guys are able to accomplish in Albany in the years going forward.
Best of luck to you.
I'm gonna head out now. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Lizzie. That was great. Nice job. All right. So, to the green building update.
Yes. Let me share my screen. Okay. You guys see that okay? All right. So today I'm just going to really kind of briefly go through the most recent subcommittee proposal for our green building code updates. Not too much new to explain today, luckily for everyone. And then I'll have Tom kind of explain the subcommittee's thinking afterwards a little bit. Okay, so these are for the residential buildings, the energy efficiency requirements, or the EDR margins, as you guys might remember. These haven't changed at all. 10, 4.7, 10.3, and 0 for each of these types of buildings. And then for residential buildings, this package of measures, we have EV charging for multifamily, permeable paving, Energy Star washing machines and dishwashers, low flow kitchen faucets, low carbon concrete, outdoor lighting, and low VOC resilient flooring. This is all on the memo as well. And then for non-residential, we have the compliance margins. These are also the energy efficiency measures. So 20%, 10, 16, and 16. And then in addition to these, we have solar panels for non-residential. So solar will be required for the entire solar zone of the building, or until enough solar is installed that matches the energy use of the building. And the solar zone, I can go back and cover that if you guys want a refresher on it later. And then these are the non-residential measures. The parking spaces designated for clean air vehicles, outdoor lighting, reduction in indoor water use, low carbon concrete, and low VOC resilient flooring. And I'll just make a quick note here. I actually made a typo on the memo, and the reduction in indoor water use accidentally got deleted off of it. So this is actually the correct version. The memo is missing this. So if you guys pass this proposal, then I just ask that you pass the version on this this PowerPoint rather than the memo version. I'll note there. So those are all the recommendations. And the next steps for this is for you all to recommend this to the council. Then we'll develop the ordinance and give it to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval, and then bring it finally to the City Council, where hopefully they'll approve it as well. At which point, all of the non-energy efficiency measures would become the new ordinance, and then we would have to apply to the California Energy Commission to approve the energy efficiency measures. So you guys might remember that last meeting, the main thing we were talking about was the question of electrical panel upgrades, and that's what the subcommittee met to discuss. So I'll let Tom or Councilmember Cooper talk about the subcommittee's decision on that.
Thanks. Thank you, Michelle. So what we discussed was the concern about requiring a panel upgrade when it's not required by whatever the project is. And because there's plenty of renovation projects that would require a permit, but don't have anything to do with upgrading the panel to 200 amp. And we decided not to require that because our concern is that we're adding costs to homeowners to do some of these other things. And the panel upgrade is going to have to be used by a homeowner when they increase the electrical load of the house, whether it's because they're trying to electrify or changing their gas dryer to an electric dryer. They would have to upgrade the panel doing that or getting an EV. So we decided not to include that as part of these requirements because it would just a financial hardship where it's not really going to have an impact. Because if you're forcing somebody to upgrade their panel and there's no real reason for that, why would we do that? So that's what we decided. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I had a question about that. So I realized like some, so would there be, where would it be is if you're doing a more significant remodeling, let's say you are changing systems, where is the incentive or the requirement to then start to develop more of an electrification thing? Is it just, is there enough in the green building requirements that when people do something more significant, that'll kick in? Or is there no incentive now for, does that go back to the efficiency measures on mixed fuel buildings, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, we didn't want to include it because it's, if your current panel is a 100 amp panel and you're overloading it because you're switching your appliances to electric, and maybe you've put a solar system on your roof or something like that, you're going to have to. But it didn't make sense to us to require somebody to spend that kind of money when they didn't need to. It's just an extra burden. It's not going to have any impact on emissions, just requiring somebody to go from 100 amp to 200 amp.
So the point of my question is, someone's considering upgrading their home and they come to, well, it'll be cheaper to just go with a gas furnace again because we won't upgrade the panel. So they'll just park in a gas furnace, a newer gas furnace. Where is the incentive to convince them to electrify?
This doesn't incentivize, there's no incentives. These are all like penalties or requirements. So it's not, a green buildings or standard doesn't have incentives built into it. It has requirements that people do certain things. So short of requiring everybody with a project over a certain size to electrify their homes, which we can't do, there's really no reason why you would make somebody pay to upgrade their panel. And I don't think logically, if somebody is trying to decide whether to switch from a gas furnace to an electric heat pump furnace and air conditioner, that the costs involved, the doing the panel upgrade is not going to impact that decision. They're doing that for other reasons.
I can also just step in and say that in terms of new construction, we do have some incentives towards electrification in here. The renovations, we're really limited in what we can incentivize or require in terms of overall electrification or efficiency of the home because it's already been built. But that incentive to build electric is definitely built into the EDR margins here for
new construction. Yeah. But that, again, that's a tiny percent of what happens in Albany. Very, very few new buildings a year.
Yeah.
Residential.
Anyway, so these sort of green stretch codes or reach codes or whatever we're calling them, probably aren't the place to do it. Maybe we're at some point we're telling people there's going to be no gas available in Albany, supposedly 2045 or whenever. So at some point it does behoove them to start making certain transitions to doing that. It sounds like this is addressing new building types. On remodeling, we don't really have a tool or there isn't any, I guess, in this that incentivizes people or, moves that. Maybe what's more important is to start looking at point of sale requirements, which are, more of a chance where there's much money changing hands and then things can be upgraded down. But I just get worried that people will come and, they'll put in, more gas appliances just because it's cheaper to go running along with gas. I mean, the whole, just because something's cheap doesn't make it worthwhile. I guess the problem is if we impose something that the California Energy Commission sort of evaluation is if it isn't cost effective, they're going to kick it out. Is that it?
I don't even know if it's that. We don't think it is going to make it's not going to make somebody change a decision. And if it's not related to what the rest of their project is, you're telling a homeowner to do something, spend money on something they weren't planning on doing and isn't going to have any kind of emissions impact. So that didn't seem like a battle we wanted to fight with people. There's, it's just one thing, upgrading your panel.
I'll also note that in terms of incentives, the electrification website that Lizzie mentioned earlier is also going to be focusing on creating more incentives and making those available to people for upgrading panels and also overall electrification. So I think that's sort of the area where we're trying to work on the incentive to electrify for renovations more than here in the Green Building Code.
Yeah, so I guess I'm still stumbling a bit over where we can start to address existing buildings, bringing them into compliance. So that's good that we'll have that resource. And I think the building codes make it a little difficult. I mean, I'm mindful of what you're saying, Tom, but at some point, people are going to have to increase their electric loads, diminish their gas loads. So when people start to do it, we'll have to think of ways to either require or incentivize them to do that. And I think it'll probably be around point of sale stuff. But anyway, that's interesting.
Right, so are there, let's see, we take public comment and then okay, so is there any public comment? Anybody wants to say?
I don't see a hand.
Okay. All right, so is the proposal that we recommend these measures to City Council as the green building?
Yes.
Okay. So sounds like Any other discussion?
Yeah, we should discuss it.
Hmm?
We should discuss it and then
Right.
vote on it.
Okay. Kate or anybody? Any other? I mean, I appreciate the subcommittee coming back, looking at this, and it just sounds like it's not your decision is not the right lever, and like Nick said, there's lots of things we probably need to think about in terms of incentivizing and other levers, but this isn't the one to use. So I appreciate you looking at that. That's I'm fine with that.
What was the, with ADUs, I know at one point we had, and I'm really sorry to sort of drag up past things, but I can't remember how it was resolved. This idea of we can't impose a 100% all electric ADU because the state law doesn't allow that. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And you'll notice here, we do have measures that apply to ADUs. So the permeable paving, Energy Star, kitchen faucets, low carbon concrete, and the flooring, all those can apply to ADUs, but we just can't do any of the energy efficiency measures.
But we did learn today that apparently ADUs are required to have solar in the solar zone, right, Michelle?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like that's still kind of, it's a new thing, but that's what it sounds like.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's that coming
Even if
from?
the existing structure doesn't have solar.
Yeah, I think if you build a new ADU, then according to the newest version of the Cal Green Code, it counts that as a residential building that you need to have solar on.
Good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that would drive people to do all electric right there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So if there's no discussion,
Sorry, India. I was muted. Yeah.
I propose, I recommend that I move that we pass this and submit it to the council.
Was that a motion?
That was a motion. I second it. We have a roll call vote.
Yes. Okay. Committee member Breeding.
Yes.
Well, committee member Choi.
Aye.
Committee member Cooper.
Aye.
Committee member Peterson.
Aye.
Chair Larson.
Aye.
I believe we still don't have committee member Way. Okay. Perfect. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Good work on that. Thank you. All right. So we have the moving on to the EV action plan.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I'm up again. So let me put up this other presentation. 1 second. Okay. You guys can all see that one okay? All right, wonderful. Okay, so now on to EVs. So this is just an update from the EV subcommittee. I'm going to talk a little bit about our electric transportation survey we did first, and then the slight change we made to the EV goals. So first is our electric transportation survey. This is a survey that we did online over the summer that was put together by Bianca before she left us. And we got quite a few results. We got 135 respondents and some really interesting data coming out of it. I'm not going to go through all the weeds, but I'm just going to give you guys some highlights and some interesting information here. So first, we have the most common forms of transport. And you can see that driving is up at the top here, but followed very closely by walking. We have a very walkable city. And biking and transit are lagging behind a little bit here. Although I will note that among multifamily renters, so those living in multifamily buildings and renting, driving and walking were nearly tied with transit. They're using a lot more transit than the overall survey respondents, which is an interesting fact. And then in terms of vehicle ownership, so here we have internal combustion vehicles, bikes, and EVs. And obviously, you know, there's still not a huge amount of EV ownership. I will note that this survey also was pretty heavy on EV owners. There were 34 out of 135 that owned EVs. So you can imagine that the people who saw the survey and are EV owners are more likely to respond to it. But it does give us a sense, especially breaking it into these different groups in terms of housing, which is something we've been thinking about a lot with the EV action plan. And you can see that the people that live in single family homes own a lot more vehicles overall. And there also, you know, there's a lot of bikes owned in this city, which is a great thing. But among the multifamily owners and multifamily renters, not quite as many. And you'll also notice that EVs are much more popular among the single family owners, right? That was really the kind of bulk of EV owners that we had in this survey. And here's a little bit more detail on that. So like I said, 34 out of the 135 respondents were EV owners, which is a much higher percentage than the actual percentage citywide, of course. And almost all of those were single family homeowners. We did have a few that were single family renters and one multifamily owner and one multifamily renter. And we had a good mix in terms of charging. There were quite a few that were charging with level 1 chargers and also quite a few with level 2, but the renters were all on level 1 or charged at work. So they didn't quite have as much infrastructure. And as far as the reasons that they went all electric, most of the EV owners talked about their concern for the environment. And then also there was a lot of talk about long commutes and wanting to be able to use the HOV lane. And you can actually see that here in the average daily mileage, which we asked about 2019 since 2020 has been so strange. But the EV owners traveled more than twice as many miles per day compared to non-EV owners. So clearly that's a big incentive, at least right now, is that, you know, people really want to be using the HOV lane and cutting down their commute times. And then in terms of priorities, we asked kind of what was important in terms of, you know, if you're going to buy an EV, what are you looking for? And homeowners, both single family and multifamily, they cared a lot about the ability to charge at home. They cared a lot about the range, and then finally the cost. For renters, it was sort of flipped. So we have the same 3 issues, but just sort of in different orders, right? The renters had cost as their first priority. And then for multifamily, they cared about range second, and then charging. And then for the single family renters, it was charging and then range. So a lot of similarity here, but there's some subtle differences that I think are probably going to be important when we think about our plan. And then in terms of charging locations, unsurprisingly, everyone was most concerned about having charging in their homes, at single family or multifamily, depending on where they lived. And then secondly, in the commercial corridors, and third, in business parking lots like Target or places like that. All right, so that's it for our EV survey. And this is the updated EV adoption goal model. It looks a lot like the one that we saw in our last meeting, but with some edits based on member Wei's comments. His main concern was about this orange line here, which is the % of annual purchases. So the 100% mark here has been moved to 2031. And the reason why is because our model assumes an average lifespan of 14 years for, you know, the average vehicle.
Hey, Michelle,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. You might just remind people of what the 2 curves represent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Thanks for that. Yeah. So the orange curve here is the percent of the EVs as a percentage of total cars sold in a year. So, here at 70% in 2027, 70% of the cars sold in Albany are EVs. The blue line, in contrast, is the percent of the total car population. So,
Can I just make a little, we don't mean sold at the car dealers. We mean that Albany citizens have purchased, right?
yes, right. Yeah. Yeah. So the new cars that are brought into Albany in that year. Yes. And then the blue line is just a percentage of the total car population. So if we count up all of the cars in the city, the percent that are EVs of that total. So right now we're at about, I think 5%. And so, here at the star, this is 40%. So by 2030, we want 40% of all of the cars to be EVs. Right. Does that make sense? Okay. I know it can be a little complicated.
Thanks.
But yeah, and so the idea was that with that lifespan of 14 years, that in 2030, that's the last time there will be a new ICE vehicle brought into the city. And within 14 years, that will have aged out and we'll have 100% EVs by 2045. So that was the main edit that we made to this in our subcommittee meetings. And as a result, we changed this orange curve slightly from what it was. It's still holding that same S shape that we thought was realistic. And the blue curve changed slightly as a result. So the new goals are starred on here. For 2030, we have a goal of 40%. And again, that's of the total car population. For 2035, it's 70% and then 100% in 2045. And we still have these notes on here. And it's really just to give us a sense of how to make this possible, right? The yellow ones on here are the ones that the city of Albany can do. Things we're already doing, like education about prices and range. That's going to be part of the electrification website, and we'll be continuing to work on that. And then building infrastructure, car sharing programs, incentives, economic aid, and then incentives for late adopters and even punitive measures later on. And then in green here, these are things that are going to happen at a larger level, statewide or even in the whole EV market. So things like more EV options becoming available, different trucks and minivans, right? And then price parity, having an equal price at the dealership with a regular ICE car. Growth of statewide infrastructure, and then statewide punitive measures on fossil fuels and ICE vehicles in general. And of course, this is not exhaustive. This is just kind of cherry picking some of the ways that we can make this curve happen and to give us a sense of what we need to be doing to get to these goals. But top line that is recommended for the committee to decide on is these starred goals here, these blue stars. Again, that's 40% in 2030, 70% in 2035, and 100 in 2045.
How much, can you explain, if we're this 2030, 40% of the cars in the city being EV, what is that? That's like 90% of the sales have to be?
Yeah, that's right.
In the next 9 years?
Yeah.
That's an ambitious goal.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Setting
our sights high.
Tom, I think what needs to happen, and either people come to this realization or we're doomed, is that we kind of need to rethink how this isn't just everybody's going to get, it's going to be a one-to-one replacement of every gas car with an EV. Some people will opt to do electric transportation on electric bikes, or electric scooters. So the idea is to make a lot more electrified options available. But what we weren't trying to do, we were trying to do here is saying, okay, we've got to try to convince people to follow this. This seems the most realistic if we're going to get here. If I want to just say, oh, let's be totally realistic how people are operating today, we're screwed. So Albany, what the test is going to be by educating people, by trying to arrange partnerships with electric vehicle leasers and others. Can we interest people or get people motivated enough to do that? And I just like to say, with cataclysmic events like the fires that have happened the last 2 years, people are very conscious of this issue. So I don't think people are just going to ignore doing things. But we're certainly going to have to implement a lot more education and a lot more options, and that's going to be the big challenge. So essentially what this is saying is, yes, we're really going to have to get people away from ICE vehicles and, think of methodologies to really convince them to do that. And there's going to be a lot of other, hopefully, these green things, hopefully will be happening. Hopefully our state will come around. Hopefully our federal government will come around if we do the right thing in November and start to do even larger policy changes and tax incentives and taxes on fossil fuels and restrictions on fossil fuels that will then drive this even more. But I wouldn't just say, oh, that's not even feasible, because we're entering a totally new area here, and we've got to try. So this is what we're saying: if we're going to truly do 100% by 2045, this is kind of the bare minimum thing, and it is. It's a huge challenge. That's why we need, that's why if someone just says, well, it's, it'll be, I don't know, it's just, we're going to have to make people make very serious and difficult choices, and we're going to impose really difficult. We have to impose as many restrictions and encouragements as possible to do this. So it means getting really creative. We don't really know the specifics of that, and that's what we need to work out. And the city can only do so much. So it's really going to be dependent on making people care enough that they will move away from just this easy decision to just buy an ICE car.
Yeah, can I just add that I like the work that we've done in the subcommittee, because it would have been easy just to put the blue line up there and say, here's our goals, and yeah, that looks nice. But this really goes to they're aggressive goals, and how are we going to get there? This is what needs to happen to get there. So I really like that, we've taken that extra step of, because everybody always, these kind of things are like, okay, well, that's nice, you got a goal, but how are we going to do it? Well, this actually says what needs to happen. So I like the backing up of the goals with the actions. So.
Quickly, I think we might want to take public comment if there is any, or make a call for public comment.
Okay.
Looks like Jeremiah's raising his hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, it's muted.
No worries.
Jeremiah, go ahead.
Thank you. What a fun topic to be working on, right? Electric vehicles. This is one of the best ones to work in. This is a great goal. I see your goals to have 100%. That's great. So that would mean every single garage in Albany would need an electrical vehicle charger by that date. That's great. So one thing we could do to reach those goals is some sort of implement a policy to where Subaru, all the car sales businesses in Albany, we got to get them to start selling more electric vehicles. We got to start pushing them to phase out these gas guzzlers and introduce, at least hybrids or electric vehicle kind of thing. So if we could work on, regulating our own city on, somehow politely asking for cooperation with these businesses, auto dealerships, hey, could you start having some incentives for customers, because I see Subaru, they get all these new cars every day and they're still gas guzzlers. Yeah, and I think the electrical charging stations would be great at the city hall. I know we have one at Public Works. We did this a while ago. I think we got 5 or 6 chargers. Still, I suggested if you guys go on Tesla.com, they have a location for Albany to sign up for superchargers. And Tesla, I'm pretty sure it sponsors, it gives chargers free for the cities. I know on the map on Tesla.com or whatever, El Cerrito, Berkeley, they're all pending. Like they've already chosen a location and Tesla's on its way toward those cities. Albany's nowhere on the list. So I see we got these goals. Let's work toward them. I think I've mentioned this before about this Tesla thing. I was going to sign up myself, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So if you guys go to Tesla.com, you sign up Albany to get the Tesla charging locations, because nobody's going to buy electric cars if there's nowhere to charge them. So the first thing you got to get is these chargers. That way people see chargers. Oh, wow, look at all these chargers everywhere. We might as well get an electric car. They got all these chargers everywhere. But all right now, people see is gas stations. So maybe you can incorporate the gas stations, right, to offer an electric charging location. So we got to start phasing in these gas stations to offer a way to charge electrical things too. So we got to implement some policies on car dealerships to sell more electric vehicles, and gas stations to have a way to charge your electric car, and also the city of Albany, maybe a San Pablo Avenue corridor project could be, one charging station per block on San Pablo, and also eventually Solano. If we could somehow incorporate chargers on Solano, 1 per block.
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you, Ann. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Those were great comments. Really appreciate it. Any other public?
I don't
comments?
see any other hands.
Okay. Any other discussion from committee members? Any questions? Yeah, Tom?
I think we need to be careful when we talk about this in terms of the motivation. I don't think it's a question of convincing anybody that EVs are a good idea as much as it's an issue around cost, which I think it's looked like it was confirmed in the survey. That's the main barrier, is cost, not whether people are concerned about the environment. The homeowners that respond to the survey, I would imagine, are, have sufficient means to buy a new car and spend more on an EV car than perhaps what they were going to spend on a new gas car. And also a lot of people tend to buy used cars, and they're going to be buying gas powered used cars. So I think when I look at this, I think yes, I agree. We're hoping the federal government and the state government provides enough incentives to reduce that delta, because I think that's where the issue is the cost, because most people who have them prefer them to the gas cars, but we're gonna have to figure out how to address the cost delta.
I would agree, and a lot of these items are on here because they deal with those issues. Totally agree. Yeah.
And I'll note, notice that price parity is here around 2024. That's an estimate, of course, of when price parity will happen, but the kind of jump in the curve is partly based on that.
Is that based on any kind of study that was done that you read? Is there anything in the...
Bianca and I did some research on that, and of course there's different estimates, but that was sort of the median estimate.
Okay. Yeah, because I know a number of auto companies have said they're not going to produce guzzlers after, or gas powered cars after 2030. But it's only a few.
Any other discussion, questions from the committee?
I'm not sure if this is like,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is like really significant, but I was just curious, what's the difference between the level 1 charging and the level 2 charging? Like, does one of them have a bigger impact or like use more energy?
Yeah, I can answer that. It's really just a question of how much power per unit of time they deliver. So the level 1 charging takes many more hours to fully charge the vehicle than the level 2 charger does. And it uses less power, like, kilowatts per hour wise. It uses the same amount of power overall, but, and generally level 2 chargers are more expensive to install. Level 1 charger is basically just the outlet you have in a wall. And level 2 charger is a little bit more souped up than that.
Yeah.
But overall, it's the same amount of electricity.
Yeah.
Either way. It's how fast you get it.
A level 1 is just like the plug in your room. It's a 110 volt. And level 2 is 240 volt that delivers at a a higher rate. So it's just, it can provide a bit more.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? We discussed this last meeting, and we just got the feedback that we needed to drive the curve so that it was representative of our goals, and not just we didn't want to show a curve that didn't meet our goals. So that was the modification that we made here.
Yeah, the thing that I just to address what Tom's bringing up, for me it seems like we're going to have to start thinking differently than just everybody has their own little personal transport vehicle. And the idea of sharing, if cost is an issue, that there's a more access to being able to share a vehicle. I'm not sure how quickly the used market I know my first electric vehicle I bought for under $7,000, only had 30,000 miles on it. So I was pretty happy with that. It has rather restricted range, but it's a perfectly fine car. And, if you want to, I think that makes the hurdle. What I really noticed on the data was the ability to charge your vehicle at home is very critical for the convenience of having an electric vehicle, because it's completely different than going to gas stations. The whole gas station model or fueling station model for electric vehicles doesn't work. It's broken completely in this country, and gas stations aren't going to convert over. It just doesn't work. So it's just really works better if people can charge it in their home.
So can I propose that the idea of this presentation was to solidify the goals that we're going to send to City Council for them to ratify as our EV adoption goals. So we've definitely got a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of great ideas, but should we close on deciding if these are our EV goals? And
yeah, does that mean we're going to discuss the rest of the items in the report, or tonight we're just addressing this?
This was to come up with goals. So our goals are 40% of all Albany vehicles are EV by 2030, 70% by 2035, and 100% by 2045. So that's basically the Climate Action Committee's statement of the goals for our EV adoption. We're not trying to nail down any specific measures to get there right now. We're just ratifying the goals.
I support it.
So is that enough of a proposal of a
Well, I guess I'd like a little bit more clarification from staff on, we're putting together this EV action plan, which is much more than just this adoption goals. I mean, it's the whole it's the whole process by, it's more of these yellow things worked out and in a bit more detail to see what we can do to push that orange curve. Are we going to have every little step of the way? Are we going to have to go back? Why are we going to the city council now? Is that just to get these goals out there so people start thinking about them? Why wouldn't we just continue on and get the whole plan together?
I mean, Nick, our subcommittee goal, I mean, our point of doing this was to, from the agenda item, it's recommend electric vehicle action plan goals to city council. So that was, I thought that was the point of what we were doing.
No, I totally understand that. I just, well, anyway, I think we'll take this to the city council and they'll probably want a lot of clarification on how are we going to reach those goals. So they may not adopt it just because we outline it. So it's kind of funny where we say, here's the goals of the plan, but we have no plan.
I agree with what Nick is saying. I thought we were going to discuss the plan in addition to the goals, because he's right. I mean, the council's going to say, how do you get there? And based on how they've operated in the past, they, I don't know. What does staff think about that?
Well, Claire, I'll let you jump in. You might know better than me, but I don't think you have to bring the goals to council. I think we just envisioned it as if we bring the goals to council first, we develop a plan around council approved goals versus developing a plan based on our goals that we've set here. But that I think is a decision for the committee to make. I don't know, Claire, if you...
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. We haven't really discussed the pathway to this. I think, as Lizzie mentioned, there's a couple options. There is definitely a benefit to seeing if council's aligned with your goals first before we move forward. But I think we could also create a plan based on these goals and bring the whole plan to council, and then they have the ability to make any comments they want on the goals or the plan itself. And we may have to discuss internally about what direction leadership would want to take on this too, since we haven't discussed that piece. So I can't promise which pathway makes sense, but we can definitely take your recommendation into consideration.
Because I mean, maybe the new council will be different, but I could see a conversation going, well, this is all pie in the sky. We'll never get there. So we're not going to support goals that we think are unrealistic and put the city in a position that they agreeing to something they have no way of knowing how they're going to get there. So something would need to come with this that would explain that to them, right?
Yeah, maybe useful to bring to flesh out the plan, share with the committee how we think we can get to those goals, and then bring the entire package to council. I think that there's,
because I think it would show them that there's been a lot of thought around this, and just like with any goals, you're not figuring, you don't necessarily know exactly how you're going to get there, but that's the idea of you have a big hairy goal and you adopt along the way as things change to get there.
Yeah, and
the last part.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Nick.
What I was going to say, I mean, I'm not trying to shoot this down or anything. I think when we originally talked about it, we thought there would be some advantage in having Albany come forward as a city saying we are committed to these goals, and it was more of making that statement, and then we would, that's why we were trying to come up with something that looked feasible, it was optimistic, but would establish those so that then we would have kind of more out there in the public view of this is where we're headed. And I think there's some merit in that, but then again, like what we have to, this council's going to be the ones that are politically on the hook for why did you establish these goals. I think what is helpful on this is I would be for presenting this, but we need to give more information, because I think this is going to be very linked to other things the council is going to be considering, like the Solano Avenue corridor plan. We're not going to make this work unless we have areas in the city where parking is essentially not allowed. People have to use different alternatives like electrified bikes, electrified scooters, and the transit corridor, so that they do not own, a way to get this further adoption is that people will get rid of an ICE car, but they will not get an EV car. So I think what we need to do is, we are not going to make this, there are a lot of linkages that we need to make the council aware of that have to do with planning and what kind of development will happen between now and 2035, which is significantly what's going to be happening along, the San Pablo corridor. So I think there is an advantage in bringing this to the council, but I don't think we can just bring it. We need to flesh out these yellow boxes and talk more about how that's going to help, and talk about the linkages to other things the city needs to do with active transportation, with potentially moving it, putting in place a parking management plan, other really critical things. So I see this as a very good tool to educate the city council to the complexity of what this is. This isn't just to get everybody to replace their gas car with an electric car. That is not how it's going to happen. It won't work if we do that. Tom was correct. It won't happen. It has to be people leaving gas-powered transportation and going to something else that doesn't create emissions.
Okay. I'm fine with doing more work, having staff and the committee do more work on fleshing out how we're going to get there. I was hoping that one way to lead is to set a goal, and then it's your guidepost for every decision, like you're saying, Nick. As time goes on, if the city council has set these goals for Albany, then they're going to use that as one of their guidelines on how they make decisions in the future. We can't predict everything that's going to happen, and we can't show everything that's going to happen to make this easy. We can flesh this out to a certain extent, but I wouldn't want to have us sit on this for forever, because city council needs to step up and say Albany is going to do this, and yes, it's going to be hard, and we're going to make decisions to make this happen. So that's what I was hoping for, the goals that we had set here. But if we want to flesh this out more so that they have a little bit more comfort that this is doable, then okay, that's okay.
Well, just to be clear, what I was trying to say, I don't know that we can write anything that's going to show that it's necessarily doable, because it's ambitious. But I think what we can do is say, here's a pathway. Here are some of the things we're talking about, and that in the next 10 years, this is what the kinds of things that the council would have to do or would have to happen at the state and federal level for us to realize it.
Right. So if we develop some of these things, I think that these are good starting points, like you say, Tom. So if we develop these into a little bit more of a, like, how this could be done or how this will be done, so that you get a little bit better, like you say, a path towards it, I could live with that.
Yeah.
So a little bit more work on it, that's fine.
Yeah, and I have a suggestion. With Allison no longer part of our committee, Tom, would you, now that you guys have just passed the green building, would you be interested in meeting with Eric and I to continue this effort of, at least fleshing out these connectivity, these connections that the city
Sure.
council needs to be aware of, and that I think you know, I really like is the idea that we put this forward, we say it's ambitious and we tell them, but this means a lot of other things. It isn't just making people buy electric cars. It's much more involved than that.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, so we got about 45 minutes left. We got a couple more items on the agenda. It sounds like we are talking about taking this to the subcommittee for more elaboration on the pathway. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Any other committee member comment or questions on that before we close it? So I hear we're not going to propose any goals to city council this time. We're going to take this back to subcommittee and work it up.
What I think we need to document is that we do want to present this to the city council, but we don't just want to focus on the goals themselves. We want to be able to also educate them on how this is interconnected with a lot of other aspects and decisions that the city council is going to be making.
Okay.
And that, you know, these need to all tie together, and they have to be very progressive on those issues in order for us to meet this goal.
Would anyone be interested in making a motion for the goals so that staff is aware that this is clearly something that the committee agrees to, but the motion could include something about how, you know, the next step would be to draft a plan based on these goals versus recommending to council?
So say something like make a motion that we accept, that the committee accepts the goals as outlined in the EV adoption goals diagram, and that we will work to put together a more thorough explanation of potentially achieving these goals for presentation to the city council at a later date.
You're comfortable with that?
That sounded good. Yeah.
Yeah, and that an aspect of this will be that the EV action plan subcommittee will continue to meet to do that with, and I think we should put a timeline goal on that within the next couple months. Is that reasonable?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this is probably a 4 to 6 month project.
Yeah, I mean, the cap took a couple years, and while this won't be as extensive, I bet we probably want a few months to work on it, and then we will have to do some vetting internally with our leadership too. So I don't know.
I wasn't thinking this would have all the nuts and bolts in it. It would basically still be somewhat high level, but point to the complexity and programs that would then support those goals that might be melded with, you know, active transportation plans, larger plans with you know, county transportation jurisdictions, etc. So yeah, I mean, I think if we want to really look into this in great detail and maybe also collaborate with some other jurisdictions, that's going to take a fair amount of time.
Yeah, I think so.
Which we would have to do anyway, right?
Yeah. So check in 3 months, and then, you know, set a goal for 6 months, a deadline, or a goal for the goals.
Let's have a shorter deadline. 6 months just seems too long. Let's try and get this done by December.
I think a deadline might be difficult, especially, not to say in my absence, but I think, you know, I think there'll be some transitions. So I'm hesitant to promise a deadline at the moment. But maybe what would be more appropriate is if you're interested in us bringing it back at certain intervals, that might be a way to ensure that you see the progress that's been made. We'll want the committee to weigh in on things throughout the process. And so that could also delay the process. And so I think it might be more of a partnership if you ask us to come back at certain intervals.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly still have a quick update. It could even be nothing to report, but we could still keep it on the agenda. What if we, we're headed towards getting a new city council that'll start up in January, right?
December, I believe.
Oh, do they get in December? Okay. So it seems like they're going to have a bit of wake up time. So maybe we want to, I mean, 6 months does seem like a lot, but maybe we want some sort of rough goal. I think if we say 6 months, at least we're shooting for something. So you think you could live with that time? I mean, as the presentation to the city council. And by that time, I think the people that are on the council, if we get the ones that I hope that we get, they may even be asking for it sooner. See what we're doing.
Yep.
So, where are we? We're at. So 6 months is what, around
Like
March?
February.
February. So that's going to be. The council will only have met as a new council.
March.
6
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So
okay. So what do we get? Nick's proposal, and then we're looking for a time frame, a check-in time frame every month or 2 months to check on progress, with an eventual goal of 6 months presentation city council.
Yeah, that's what I would say. You okay with that, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
So do we have, did you, Lizzie, I don't know if you want to restate the motions.
I have motion to accept the EV adoption goals outlined in the graph and continue working on a plan to reach these goals. And then I have a note that says the committee aims to finalize goals in the next 6 months.
No, I would say the plan.
Yeah.
Or presentation to city council.
Yeah, finalize the presentation to city council.
And just to be clear, I don't think we can lay out how you get to the end state. I think we can outline what we think is the next 10 years, what that would need to look like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's too many moving parts.
Okay.
So
as a reminder, we will have to do, for a typical planning process, probably some community engagement and vet it internally. So this will be a timeline that we'll aim for, but
yeah.
What's the alternative? I mean, if we had just sent these goals to council, would we still need a planning process to figure out how to reach the goals? Council adopted them?
I mean, council could adopt the goals and then we start the planning process based on those goals. Right now, we have goals that the committee agreed upon but aren't going to council, but the planning process will continue to reach those goals and it all goes to council as a package.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to need to close on this pretty quickly because we got to get on to the next agenda item pretty quick.
I think we can
okay with this?
Later. So a motion stands. I've proposed it if anyone wants to second it.
I'll second it.
Right.
Roll
call.
Committee member Breeding?
Aye.
Committee member Cooper?
Aye.
Sorry, committee member Choi?
Aye.
Committee member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Larson?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay.
Let me know when you're ready to move on.
Ready.
You ready? Okay. So, Lizzie, you're going to introduce the request for the endorsement of Measure DD first, and then we're going to discuss it. Right? So go ahead, take it away.
So I just want to clarify that this item is not an opportunity for the CAC to advocate for Measure DD, but rather a discussion of whether or not the CAC as a whole agrees to allow an official endorsement to be added to the ACAC Measure DD website. Members of the public can speak freely about Measure DD during the public comment period. Additional information about Measure DD, including the full text of the measure, the city attorney's impartial analysis, and information about arguments in favor and against, can be found by going to the election information page on the city website. So just to clarify again, we can't discuss why people are choosing to vote for Measure D, but we can discuss whether or not the CAC chooses to endorse Measure DD on the ACAC website. Does anyone have questions about that before we get started? We're trying not to violate election and campaign law here, so want to make sure we're all clear.
Would it make sense to just propose a motion and see if everybody agrees?
That could work.
I don't need to discuss it. We have discussed this so much and we've brought it forward. So unless anybody else wants to.
We probably should make a quick call for public comment first, though.
Okay.
Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak about this?
Not seeing any hands up for public comment for Measure DD.
Okay.
So go ahead with the motion, please.
Yeah, Nick or Tom, or do you want to propose a motion?
I move that the CAC approve and endorse Measure DD in the upcoming election.
Second.
Any? Okay, so roll call vote?
Committee Member Choi?
Aye.
Committee Member Breeding?
Aye.
Committee Member Cooper?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Larson?
Aye.
Perfect. Motion carries.
Okay, all right.
I apologize that I keep mixing up the order. The Zoom tiles keep moving around.
It's okay. I wanted to make sure we got into that because Lizzie had me all freaked out about how carefully we're going to have to tread on that one. So
That was perfect.
pretty good.
And then we.
So we're on to our last item, right?
Yeah, we're on 6-5 because we started with 6-4. Because Allison Martin is no longer a member of the Climate Action Committee. We are in need of a vice chair through, this person will serve as vice chair through reappointments.
Through January, reappointments. Yes.
Yeah.
Which, did we mention reappointments?
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
We can talk about it more next month and you'll learn more, but just as a reminder, during election season, once there is a council election, then every committee member is up for reappointment, even if your council member is still seated. So we'll give you more of an update in October, November about that through the process, but that will be coming up that you'll all need to put in applications again, even if you've already done that. So through that process, then in January, you will do your regular chair and vice chair elections as usual. So this person will serve until that point.
Yes. And as a reminder for the procedure of how this works, nominations for vice chair, we won't be electing a chair. Eric will stay the chair. But nominations for vice chair can be made by any CAC member. They do not require a second, but we can take a list of nominations, and then once we know who is nominated, nominees will be voted on one at a time in the order received.
I nominate Sarah Choi. Tom, you had your hand.
I was going to nominate Member Breeding.
Any other nominations? Do both members, are you okay with being nominees? All right. So since Sarah Choi was the first to be nominated, I'll do a roll call vote for Sarah Choi. Committee Member Choi? I think you still have to vote for yourself.
No or aye.
Okay. Committee Member Cooper?
No?
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Sorry, Committee Member Breeding?
Aye for Sarah Choi.
Chair Larson?
Aye.
Okay. Well, I do think Committee Member Choi was nominated by the popular vote. But so I think we have our vice chair through January.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're on to future agenda items.
Right. Any suggestions for future agenda items? Other than the update from the EV Action Subcommittee?
Well, it'd be nice to, so we're pretty much done with the green building, although I'm wondering, are there other CA cap? I mean, there's a lot in the cap to implement. And one thing I would be interested in moving forward on were our point of sale requirements, which I know are going to be hugely unpopular with a certain segment of our business community, but they are a good way to bring about movement on certainly electrification of existing housing stock. So I think that, we have subcommittees that have looked at certain aspects of the cap, and I guess we don't want to have standing subcommittees. So would the idea be to look at where on the cap we have reference to which action that is, and then create a subcommittee to pursue that action? I'm putting that forward as something I think we should really focus on, because I think we could gain some immediate headway on it and some impact.
Sounds like a good item, a nice specific one that's, I think we all agree is very high priority. I guess it brings back to mind, that we probably as a committee need to revisit the priority list overall and just sort of like, what is our strategy for working through and implementing the climate action plan. So that's maybe not next month, but it's probably something we should revisit this year and kind of regroup on that.
Well, I believe, sorry, go ahead, Lizzie.
Oh, I was just going to say, as scary it is to think about it, we will probably be taking, like we did, we'll be having a discussion about what 2021 priorities will be sooner than we all think. So perhaps that's a good time to address it. And I will say we might not want to disband the Green Building Subcommittee just yet, because we still do have a lot of work left to do to get the Green Building Codes turned into an ordinance and then to council for 2 readings. So we might want to keep that subcommittee active just in case anything comes up. Just a thought.
I was hoping to rope Tom in on the EV action plan. Oh, well.
Well, he's still welcome to join it if he wants to be a part of 2 subcommittees, but
it's your call, Tom.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, I'm fine with doing that.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, if we could, I mean, if that's the way to roll in to get something on the agenda, I think I would like to start looking at that. Maybe it's under the category of in, incentives and requirements for existing housing stock.
Well, wouldn't that be part of like a city ordinance related to the, I mean, how would an ordinance like that
Well, let's
happen?
put it on the agenda so
Yeah,
that we can discuss it.
So it'd be good to hear that from staff about that kind of a thing, what form that would take, so that would help guide our discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, we will be attending some staff meetings with other Alameda County city staff to discuss electrification as a whole over the coming months. And I think we can maybe provide updates about what the cities are talking about, because it is a very, it's a complicated issue again with the legality of some of these discussions.
Yeah. Well, and I think with the green code issue, that we took a really deep dive into that, but there's still this whole other aspect. I think it goes back to even like when we looked at the BETO, how can we incentivize and how can we get improvements in the existing housing stock? So it's a pretty wide open category. It may take ordinances, it may not take ordinances, it may be bond measures, I don't know, but we should start looking at it.
Okay, so we've got it for a future agenda item. Okay. Any other items come to mind people would like to see on the agenda?
Are we still taking a look? I know Sarah and Kate were looking a bit at the green infrastructure. Is there, we haven't really heard a report on that, or at least haven't heard anything late. Would it be good to keep that on and see what's happening with that?
I can provide an update on the staff side. I've done some research into exactly what tree plans are and what it will take, and specifically what we would probably need and want in Albany. But part of that is knowing that a lot of that requires consultant work because it's very technical and there are layers of GIS that we don't really have in-house to tackle that right now. And with budget considerations given COVID-19, we aren't able to hire that consultant support just yet. So we may have to revisit that again. We'll keep an eye on it, but we'll probably have to revisit that again once we're more sure of the budget.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe, maybe we bring it back so the whole committee can talk about it at sort of a higher level, because there may be some program. I know El Cerrito has a voluntary citizen program that works pretty effectively in planting trees and doing stuff. So rather than it just becoming a city hurdle for costs and consultants, it could just be a volunteer effort. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I think we're getting into a conversation about implementing CAP, which is probably a whole, or just CAP priorities. But to that note, yeah, I think we do have to do some work into where are we going to plant trees and what are the tree wells and how are we going to get the funding for the trees for the volunteer program. So I do think we just have a little bit more logistics to figure out, but we can keep the committee updated.
And I know pre-COVID we talked about doing like a joint committee with the Parks and Rec, and that you guys were going to look into that because you said that there were a few steps in order to be able to do that. Do you know where we could put that on an agenda piece?
Can you remind me what that was about?
Tree plan.
The
the tree
subcommittee
plan
for
itself.
urban forestry.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I think we have to wait until we have the budget to be able to hire someone, and then once that's in place, we'll work. We'll wait for consultants probably to propose a community engagement plan, but we can definitely craft that plan. So I think we're kind of playing with
break down the steps in order to be able to like form like a joint commission with the Parks and Rec. Like, what are the steps we have to take to be able to do that?
I
I'm
remember
actually not sure. Sorry.
looked into it. I don't remember off the top of my head because I think this was back in like February when we last talked about it. But I don't think it's the easiest thing in the world to do. So I'll check back on that and provide an update. But yeah, I
think it might have to be a noticed public meeting, which may mean that we'd need to have it be televised, which may mean we really don't have the staff to do that right now because, you know, our meetings have changed because of COVID. But I mean, we can definitely get back to you on the logistics of it, but I think it sounds like the purpose of it would be to work on a plan that's not currently happening. So I think it would be something we do in the future.
Okay. Any other ideas? Any comments?
have a reminder. Don't forget that September 30th, 5:30 p.m., we will be having our special meeting to discuss EBCE and the power mix and making a recommendation to council. So please make sure you're there on time. And we are down one member because Allison Martin's position has not been filled yet. So if you cannot make that meeting, please let me know as soon as possible because we want to make sure we have a quorum. Because without a quorum, we can't make a recommendation and we are kind of on a tight timeline. So just make sure to mark your calendar or let me know if you cannot be there.
Lizzie, are you going to provide an update on any decisions that East Bay Community Energy Board comes up with that will sort of flesh out a bit more what our options are?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of writing potentially a long memo on what's happened thus far, and then I'll be watching the recording of tonight's meeting tomorrow to put in that memo. So be on the lookout for that, not this Friday, but the Friday after.
Good, thank you.
Great. All right, I think we are at the end of our meeting. So I'm always, so I got my little gavel, and so we're adjourned.
Good luck, Claire. Gonna miss you.
Yeah.
Thank
See you, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell them
Thanks,
to
everybody.
hold down up there in Portland also.
Tell them what?
Tell them to get it under control.